right, so picture this. It's New Year's Day. You're in Vegas. The city's, still kind of buzzing from all the New Year's Eve parties. And
Yeah.
suddenly, bam, right there in front of the Trump International Hotel, there's this totally wrecked Cybertruck.
Yeah.
Like smoke everywhere, debris all over the street. I mean, what could possibly lead to a scene like that? That's exactly what we're going to be diving into today. The Cybertruck explosion that, well, pretty much everyone's been talking about.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, what gets me about this is just the mystery of it all, We've got these crazy visuals, people hurt, crime scene, possible terrorism. But the why? The why is the real puzzle here.
Yeah, totally. And like each new detail that comes out just makes it more confusing,
Yeah.
Like the driver. They figured out who he is, Matthew Livelsberger, 37 Army vet, but not just any Army vet. This guy's got a really specific background.
Oh, yeah, this isn't your average soldier. Liebelsberger was Special Forces, operations sergeant, stationed in Germany, specialized in drones, operating them, maintaining them. And we're not talking like the drones you buy at Best Buy. These are serious pieces of equipment, some with like hyperspectral imaging and all sorts of other high-tech stuff.
Wait, hold on, back up. Hyperspectral imaging, that's like, what, being able to see things the human eye can't?
Exactly, yeah. So you can analyze light in way more detail,
Right.
Figure out what things are made of, even from far away.
Okay, so this guy's not just some, weekend warrior. He knows how to operate, maybe even modify some pretty serious military tech. I don't know about you, but it's kind of freaking me out.
And get this, inside the Cybertruck, they found fireworks, gas tanks, camping fuel, a whole detonation system. Like, he rigged the whole thing himself. So we know this wasn't an accident. It was deliberate. The question is, deliberate for what? Like, what was he trying to do?
I'm thinking Elon Musk probably had a mini heart attack when he heard about all this.
Oh, absolutely. He went on social media, you know how he is, said, yeah, confirmed the truck itself didn't explode. It was very large fireworks. Endora bomb, he said. And even Musk was like, never seen anything like this, happening to a Tesla before.
But see, even that statement gets you thinking, right? I mean,
Yeah.
The Cybertruck, it's built like a tank. Could its toughness, the thing they marketed for, could that make it like appealing to someone who wants to do some serious damage?
I think, unfortunately, yeah, you have to at least consider that possibility. This whole thing could be like a real-life stress test for the Cybertruck in the worst way possible.
Yikes. Okay, so not good.
Yeah.
And then there's this whole other thing with Liebelsberger's military background. 19 years in the Army, tech expert, engineering, access to who knows what. It's hard not to think that Kate played a role in all this.
No, absolutely. And the specific skills he has, that's what really stands out. Drones, we talked about hyperspectral imaging. He's got explosives detection training, targeting. It's not just knowing how to use explosives, it's understanding them.
Right. It's like he's got the whole package, scary as that is to say.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got this skilled, potentially dangerous guy. You've got a vehicle that's basically a tank, and it's loaded with, well, who knows what exactly. But the big question is, why? Why the Trump International Hotel? Was it just random, or is there something more to it?
Okay, so this is where it gets even more complicated and honestly even more concerning. Turns out there might be a connection to another attack. Same day, this one in New Orleans, and this one was bad. 15 people killed.
Whoa, wait, same day. Are we talking like coordinated attacks now? This is getting into some serious, like, conspiracy theory territory.
I know, right? So that kind of throws a wrench in the lone wolf theory, right? 2 attacks, same day, both using rented vehicles. The New Orleans suspect, they're looking at a guy named Shamsuddin Jabbar. And get this, he and Liebelsberger, they were reportedly stationed at the same base at one point.
Okay, this is way too many coincidences. 2 guys, military backgrounds, rented vehicles, attacks on the same day. Something's definitely not adding up here.
Yeah, and here's another thing. Both vehicles, the Cybertruck and the one in New Orleans, rented through Turo.
Okay, so we got to talk about the wife, too. You mentioned some pretty intense stuff on social media.
Right. So they're looking into these posts. Seems like they're from Sarah Livelsberger, probably Matthew Livelsberger's wife. And some of the comments are, well, let's just say they're not what you want to see. Like, she made a comment about having motivation to kill after reading some of Trump's tweets.
Oh, yeah, that's not good. But how do we know if she was serious? Like, is this just someone venting online, or is this something more?
Yeah, that's the tough part. It's something investigators will definitely be looking into for sure, trying to figure out if there's any real connection between her words and what happened.
It's a good reminder, though, that what you put online, it can have real-world consequences.
Oh, absolutely. But, okay, let's step back from the social media for a minute and go back to the scene in Vegas. We've got the explosion, possible motives, possible connections, but what about, like, the hard evidence?
So, I mean, obviously there's the Cybertruck itself, which is, not in great shape. But besides that, what did they actually find?
So they found like pieces of fireworks, canisters, all that sort of thing scattered around where the truck blew up. It was definitely a planned operation, not just some random, messing around with explosives.
Which, again, points back to Livsberger's training, right? He knew what he was doing.
Right.
But if he really wanted to cause, like, maximum damage, why use the Cybertruck? Wouldn't something less, noticeable have been smarter?
Okay, so this is where things get really interesting and honestly a little creepy. It turns out the Cybertruck's design, yeah, might have actually helped limit the damage.
Wait, what? How is it even possible? We're talking about a bomb here.
Yeah, but the way the Cybertruck is built, with that super strong steel exoskeleton, it apparently contained the explosion, kind of directed it upwards. Musk even said, quote, "The evil knuckleheads picked the wrong vehicle for a terrorist attack."
I don't even know what to say to that. It's like the whole, marketing thing for the Cybertruck, it's super tough, but then it actually ends up maybe saving lives in a terrorist attack.
Yeah, it's a weird situation.
It's like Musk accidentally designed a bomb-proof car.
Yeah, well, I mean, not exactly, but yeah, you see what I mean.
Definitely makes you think, right?
Yeah, about unintended consequences, for sure.
For sure. So we've got this whole, like, messed up situation. A potential terrorist attack, a driver with some serious skills, a wife who's posting some really concerning things online, and a truck that's built like a tank. But maybe that was a good thing. There's a lot to wrap your head around.
Yeah, it's a lot. And we've only just scratched the surface, really. This whole thing, it's like a twisted puzzle, and we're just starting to figure out how the pieces fit together.
Well, one thing's for sure. It's definitely going to be a wild ride figuring out the rest of this story. So buckle up, folks, because this deep dive is about to get even more interesting. Stay tuned for part 2.
The more we dig into this whole Cybertruck thing, the more it seems like Levelsberger's military training, like, that's got to be a big piece of this puzzle.
Oh, yeah, it's hard to ignore, right? All those skills, all that experience, like, it was all building up to this. But how do investigators where do they even start with something like that?
Well, they're looking at everything. His service records, training manuals, talking to people he served with, trying to, figure out what he knew, when he knew it. Were there any warning signs they missed?
It's like, I don't know, trying to solve a mystery where someone keeps ripping pages out of the book. And the stakes are, they couldn't be higher, right? If this guy was part of some group or if someone put him up to this could be way bigger than just one explosion.
Right, exactly. And that's what makes this whole lone wolf question so important. Was he acting alone, or was he part of something bigger? That New Orleans connection, that definitely makes it seem like maybe it wasn't just him.
Okay, so it's a tangled web, for sure. But even with all the military stuff, the explosives, the possible connections, there's still this big question mark. Why? What was Livelsberger's goal?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question. Was he trying to get revenge on someone? Was it some, I don't know, political statement? Or was something else entirely? Investigators are looking at all of it, but it's not easy, especially with all the, misinformation and everything else flying around these days.
Yeah, good point. And then there's the wife, right? Her posts on social media. Those add a whole other layer of weirdness to all of this.
Yeah, her comments about Trump, the motivation to kill thing, it's disturbing, for sure.
Yeah.
But how much of it is just online talk? How much of it is real?
That's a question everyone's asking these days, right?
Yeah.
Where's the line between saying something online and actually doing something?
Right. And in this case, with, everything else that's going on, investigators have to take those posts seriously.
Oh, absolutely. You have to at least wonder if she had any influence on what her husband did. Was she just venting? Or was it something more?
Yeah, they'll be digging into all of that, looking at their communication, their shared beliefs, anything that might show if they were working together or if she maybe even encouraged him to do something.
It's a reminder that what we do online, it can have real world consequences. In this case, some very serious consequences.
No question about it. But okay, let's shift gears for a minute. We've been talking a lot about Levelsberger, his wife, their background, but let's not forget about the victims here. 7 people were hurt, some of them pretty badly. Their lives are forever changed because of this.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in the investigation and all the details, but we can't lose sight of the human cost. Real people were hurt, and the community is going to be dealing with the fallout from this for a long time.
Exactly. And this whole thing, it makes you think about security too, right? Like, how do we protect ourselves in a world where anyone can get their hands on dangerous technology?
Yeah, that's a big question.
Mm.
And there's no easy answer. But this whole thing is definitely a wake-up call. We need to be aware of what's out there, we need to be ready to adapt, and we need to talk about how we keep people safe in a world that's changing so fast.
Couldn't agree more. Okay, but let's go back to the Cybertruck for a second. You were saying before how its design might have actually helped. Can you talk a little more about that?
Sure, so the Cybertruck, it's got this, like, outer shell, an exoskeleton made of super strong steel. It's supposed to be able to handle, like, almost anything, which is why Musk is always bragging about how tough it is.
So you're saying the thing that was supposed to make it good for off-roading might have actually protected people from a worse explosion.
Yeah, exactly. It's like one of those unintended consequences things. They designed it to be tough, but no one was thinking about, bombs.
Yeah, but it's also kind of scary, right? I mean, if the Cybertruck can withstand a bomb like this, what happens if someone tries to use one to cause even more damage?
That's a good point. It's like the good and the bad of technology, all wrapped up in one crazy story.
Definitely. This whole thing is like a case study in that.
Okay, so we've got a potential terrorist attack. We've got a suspect who knows how to use some pretty serious technology. We've got a wife who's saying some pretty worrying things online.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got a truck that's basically a tank, which might have been a good thing in this case, but also maybe not so good in other
There's
ways.
a lot to process.
It is. But as always, we're here to break it all down, figure out what's going on, and help you make sense of it all. So hang in there because this deep dive is about to get even more interesting. It's been really interesting going through all of this with the Cybertruck explosion, and it's kind of hit me that it's not just about, one event. It's like it brings up so many things about, well, about the world we live in, right?
Yeah.
Technology, security, social media, all that stuff.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's like this incident, it's a trigger, It brings up all these fears and anxieties people have about, well, about where we're headed as a society.
Exactly. And it makes sense, right? I mean, turn on the news, it's all violence, politics, technology changing everything. It's easy
Right.
to feel like it's all too much, like things are getting out of control.
Totally. And then something like this happens with all its weird twists and turns, and it feeds that feeling, Like you've got people looking at the Cybertruck, this futuristic high-tech thing, and they're saying, see, this is what happens when we let technology get too powerful.
And then you've got the wife's social media posts and people are saying, this is what happens when all that online hate, spills over into real life. It's like this one event has become this mirror for all of our anxieties about the world.
And that's why I think we have to be really careful here. It's easy to get caught up in all the fear and anger and just want to, simplify everything, point fingers. But we can't let that fear control how we think about this.
Right, we can't just jump to conclusions. This doesn't mean we should ignore what happened, but it does mean we need to think critically. We can't just make assumptions about, what this all means.
Yeah, exactly. We need to be asking the right questions. What made this guy do it? What about his wife? Does she play a role? Was he working with other people? What about his military training? How did that factor in? These are not easy questions, and we need to be honest about the fact that we don't have all the answers right now.
And we might never have all the answers. Human behavior, it's messy.
It is, and we have to remember the investigation is still going on. They're still putting the pieces together. We need to let them do their job.
But in the meantime, I think there's some things we can learn from this whole situation, like the whole security thing. This shows how threats are changing. It's not just about, countries or big terrorist groups anymore. It's about individuals, people who have specific knowledge, who know how to use technology and who can do a lot of damage.
And it means we have to think differently about security. It's not just about, putting up more cameras or building walls. It's about understanding why people do these things, what causes extremism, and how we can make our society more resilient, more prepared.
Yeah, and we have to talk about social media too. It can be great for, connecting with people and sharing ideas, but it can also be a breeding ground for hate and misinformation and all sorts of bad stuff. We need to be more aware of what we're seeing and sharing online. And these social media companies, they need to do more to make their platforms, safer, more responsible.
Absolutely. It's about finding that balance, right? Free speech is important, but we also have to protect people from harm. It's tricky, but we have to figure it out.
And then there's a whole technology angle. The Cybertruck, it was designed to be tough for off-roading, all that.
Yeah.
But then it ends up maybe, preventing even more damage in a terrorist attack.
Yeah, it's wild. It's a good example of how, we can't always predict what's going to happen with technology. Something designed for one thing can be used for something totally different, something we never even thought of.
Right. So where does this leave us? I mean, We've talked about the attack, the people involved, the evidence, what it means for security, technology, society. We still don't have all the answers, but I think we've learned a lot.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about, right? Trying to understand complex issues, looking at them from different angles. It's not about always being right. It's about asking the right questions, being open to new information, having real discussions.
Exactly. And that's what we try to do here on the deep dive. We take something complicated, break it down, and try to make sense of it. But it's not just about us. It's about you too, the listeners. We want you to think critically, form your own opinions, be part of the conversation.
That's what it's all about.
So as we wrap up this episode, we want to leave you with something to think about. What does this whole Cybertruck thing tell us about how online words can turn into real-world actions? And what can you do to make the online world a more responsible place? Keep those questions in mind as you think about everything we've talked about. And until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep diving deeper.